Welcome to the Healthy Show, where we journey through health, wellness, self-mastery, and entrepreneurship. Discover powerful insights from industry experts as they share their path to success and offer practical tips to elevate your life. Join us for thought-provoking discussions that inspire you to reach new heights. Hi, Grant. Thanks so much for making time. I was really looking forward to that. I only have known you for about 6 weeks and really excited about your work that you do, but also the energy you just bring to life, which is really inspiring for me. And of course, you bring that energy also to the work that you do, which sort of blends quite a few different aspects of being a human being, which is like, high performance, focusing on a goal, but also at the same time having the resilience and having the strength to pull through and having a good life. That's at least how I read your work. It's probably a little bit more specific than that, but welcome on the show.
Thanks for having me, Sebastian.
Terrific. Sorry?
It's possibly a little less structured than that, maybe.
Okay, so you have a really custom approach for athletes of how they actually, sort of how you help them to stay on track or achieve their goals.
Yeah, well, everybody's an individual and everybody's got different aspects of conditioning that they have to deal with. So the application of the work needs to be able to shift and morph and change. So it's like an open field, really.
Yeah.
With each individual, you just deal with that person as they turn up. And I always find that if I bring too much structure,
then
it doesn't really work.
Right.
You have to be present with whatever is happening for them.
Yeah. Are there any commonalities of what sort of hurdles for people are?
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially with elite athletes, grounding is a really big one because, there's so much cognitive thought around what needs to get done, what needs to happen on a daily basis, the performance aspects, the pressure and the worry and the anxiety of it. People's energy tends to lift into their heads. So if I had to generalize this, my job as I see it is to bring people out of their head and back into their body.
So even they actually, like, their job is sort of like having a physical body and doing high performance things with their body. It's still not that they're actually really grounded that way. I interpret when you say grounded of being present in your body and really sort of using it to achieve, whatever the goal is, or is it a bit different?
No, that's it. I mean, like, people tend to do a lot of projecting. Like, they go up into their heads and they do a lot of thinking. And if doubt gets involved in that thinking, then they start projecting into catastrophe. And then they start worrying about what could happen.
Yeah.
And as you know, when there's energy in our bodies and there's energy in our head that's doubtful, we create doubtful situations. So it's like, if you're going to do an embodied process like an elite sport, be in your body and trust the instincts and the intelligence that we have in our body to drive that process. But then, like, leading up to major events, there's an old saying in sport, when a gun goes off, the bullshit stops. I don't know if I can swear on this podcast, but it's like, that's really true, because as soon as the event starts, all the worry, all the doubt, everything disappears and you're just present with the power of the process. So I find that if I can ground people and get them present as they move into that process, then they've got more access to their own power, if that makes sense.
Basically, resources are not taken up and no distraction is happening in the brain. So what are some of the tools that you would use? Like, there are probably some that are happening in the moment and other where you actually work with athletes for a long time to really get through certain things, right?
Yeah, so some common tools are cue words. Like, I do a lot of visualization with athletes.
Yes.
I'm trained in hypnotherapy and psychotherapy, and I use those tools to help them visualize what they want to achieve, but in the felt sense, like, so they can actually feel it in their bodies. And so then there's that automaticity thing that we talked about. So what you most consistently practice will come out on race day. So it's like, if you visualize the energy you want to be in, then you get the result of that energy when you're in that process. So that's one of the main tools. And then other tools are like simple things like breathing low into the right down into the perineum, into the pelvis, and that drains the energy. Well, I find it. You follow the breath, you pull the energy down into like an instinctual center where you have more access to your own athletic power, more resilience, more endurance.
Yes.
More capability, more
Right. So I guess that would even apply for people that are not necessarily in high performance, right? Like if I think about it, if I have a topic, let's say with my partner, that is really, really difficult to approach, and whenever we talk about it, it gets always heated and somehow derailed, even though we both have good intent. So if I would visualize of like what would be a better outcome, and then also use my breathing of like being in the moment where I just feel the heat or the emotions about something, or feel it's unfair, it's an emotion like that or something, this technique would probably just be as applicable, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all human beings, right? And at the end of the day, it's like, how much capacity do I have to respond rather than react? You know what I mean? Like there's this, when we go up into the head and get very busy with what's happening and we're reacting and it's reactive, we become contracted. Like even your energy in your body becomes contractive. You become tense and your ability to respond dissolves. And then you end up reacting from reactive thoughts rather than responding from an open space, like a more expanded capacity. I think that's the key word, capacity to respond rather than react from contraction.
Right. So if we are on a racetrack and I guess our brain is really busy with what if, have I really, am I don't know if you still have laces on racetracks, but like are my laces all tight and all, and you just go through that, which is all like head function. There's more capacity then to actually really use your body and be really grounded to perform, right? Is that sort of an example? It's not quite like that.
Yeah, there's an old saying, you're not going through anything, everything's going through you. So that's the position I take with athletes. Like, okay, there's pressure, but that pressure's going through you. This environment is going through you. You're not going through it. So that's a more expanded viewpoint. And so they have more capacity to deal with the challenge, which is at the end of the day, when you set yourself for a challenge, it's like, why would you come out against yourself in that challenge? And that's what most people do. Like if you analyze people's thinking, let's say pre-race or before any big event where there's pressure, people come out against themselves. I'm not sure I have what it takes. I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I'm fast enough. I don't think I'm strong enough. There's a whole negative dialogue that spirals around in our thought process that we're not even conscious of. We all have that. Yeah.
I wonder why we do it.
Conditioning. Like I really looked into this because it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Like when you come in, when your kids, they're like a blank slate, right?
Yeah.
They come in here, no conditioning, no ideas, no doubts, no fears, no nothing. Just like, and they're so curious. Everything's a source of curiosity and everything's a source of adventure and excitement.
Yeah.
And then we get slowly blunted. You go to school and the first thing they tell you is you have to do this, 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 and this to get this result.
Right.
And if you don't get that result, you won't get an ATAR, you won't be able to go to university, you won't, all that whole threatening dialogue that is conditioned into us. In this case, it's my job to undo that conditioning and take them back to that childlike state that's full of just curiosity.
Yeah.
What's possible? What's my capacity? What's really my capacity?
So is it obvious when you meet an athlete that has mastered that? Like, are they overall interacting with the world in a different, more childlike way? Would you say that, or is it really specific to the situation that they just turn it on?
That's a great question. Some individuals are able to just turn it on. Like they may be the world's most anxious person and be close to the point of throwing up pre-race.
Oh, wow.
And then the second that gun goes off, boom, they're locked and loaded. And I do. I've had athletes who've come in who have been highly anxious.
Yeah.
One particular guy is only 22 and he's racing against the best in the world, right? And he's there like, there's so-and-so, and I've got so much respect for him, and I've got so much respect for him, and I don't want to, I don't want to swim over him at the first buoy. And I'm there, dude, I'm sorry, but there's no, everything's fair in love and war.
Yeah.
And this is war now. Like, and when the gun goes off, I don't care how anxious you are, but that's where all the focus needs to come into your process, nobody else's.
Yes.
Not the world champions, not the Olympic champions, nobody, just yours. And if at the first buoy you have to swim over them to get to what you want to, then that's what needs to happen. You know what I mean? So it's like, so the training is to practice these things. If you feel nervous, if you feel anxious, if you feel disassociated, that's okay. We do it anyway. And we say yes to that too. It's part of the whole process. We're not pushing anything out.
Yeah.
So we're bringing a yes to everything, including whatever turns up in that moment. But the training is to slowly undo all the conditioning that we've had since we were 5 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking about that a little bit more, I'm aware of a book that's called Altered Ego, by Todd. I can't remember his last name, and he would have worked with Kobe O'Brien or Roger Federer, and he developed the switch, which normally has a cue like I turn around my head, my cap, or or wear a particular thing, and at that moment you are in that mode. And so I think that's sort of the cue to the whole person. Okay, now I'm like for example, the Black Mamba really famously was Kobe O'Brien. And he was not particularly nice when he was in that thing. So he couldn't really be like that in the real world. So what happened is that he had certain cues that he knew, like, okay, now I'm in this and I'm showing up like that. But when I'm stepping off the field, at that moment, I become normal again.
Yeah.
I think it becomes even subconscious. Like if you think about someone working at the military, when they wear their uniform, I would expect them to bring a certain aspect of them much stronger than if they wear a Hawaiian shirt, let's say, at home.
Yeah.
Could be helpful.
Yeah. Oh, you used the key word, which is the cue word. I use them a lot. In visualization,
yes,
we embed cue words so that if something challenging's happening, things aren't going the way that you think they should, you have a cue word to reset. Because that's the problem, right? Like with elite anything, with anything where you're pushing yourself, there's an expectation. So we build a mental picture of what this thing looks like. That's okay. If you feel it, if you feel what that picture is, but if you build this expectation and then reality comes with a different picture and you compare the two pictures, it's like, I'm not happy with this picture, then you're in trouble because then you're moving away from the process. So once again, it's like, I have to accept everything, all of it, every single thing. But cue words are really good ways to reset. You catch yourself in that disassociated or dysfunctional adaptation to that challenge. And you go, okay, like I'm not present. I'm doubting myself. I'm bringing negative talk. I need to reset. Cue words are a great way to do it.
Yeah. Well, what would be a good one, a strong one, a really clear cue word for a person? I'm sure it's really personal, isn't it? Whatever works for people.
Well, I have my own.
Okay.
Like for me, when I start to realize that I'm responding dysfunctionally to a challenge, I drop into my feet, I imagine that there's a channel between my nose and my perineum, and I breathe the oxygen down to the perineum. The belly fills up of its own accord, and straight away you can feel your weight in your feet, right? Like it happens straight away.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So the tension pushes the energy up, the breathing brings the energy down. And I mean, that speaks to that old saying that we all say to each other, why don't you calm down?
Yeah.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Like, why don't you bring the energy down?
It reminds me of the time, it must be at least 15 years ago, I was doing breathing exercises like 2 hours a day 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at night. And there was one particular conflict of a new manager coming in and just trying to make changes by getting really, really hostile, really, really aggressive. And I had this one meeting where I had him in, and I think someone that was was working with him or something like that. And I realized that it was quite heated, so I did my breathing just for my own sake. It wasn't really intentful. It was just like, oh, this helps me now to listen really what is said rather than getting emotional about that. And I remember walking out of the room, and the second person said, like, oh, I'm so sorry, what happened? And I didn't realize that it was really strong. Like, he explained to me what he thought he had seen there, and that was not okay. It was certainly not okay, but it didn't affect me much.
Yeah.
Even though that was, I think it was even the CEO doing it, and really, really quite loud and all of that. But I remember I was just breathing, and it's like, okay, just collect the data as you hear it and respond to the data, nothing else, while breathing the whole time. And it was really an aha moment, because I felt so, it was just, I was neutral, it was just what it was. And that was really, really powerful, because I realized, okay, I can use this in any situation where I actually feel like all it takes is a cool head, or not like overthinking it, or just not responding to it, reacting to it. I guess is more the word that you would use, not reacting to it, but actually responding calmly to it.
Yeah.
So that definitely helped.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And what a great anchor. Because what can you do about somebody else's
not
style?
Much. Yeah, I'm sure like if I would have really gone aggressively back, that wouldn't have helped me staying in that organization at that time.
No.
Because so that was actually really good.
But then there's no productivity either, right? Like, there's that whole piece around personal integrity. What other people say about you is none of your business. And even there's a guy named Don Miguel Ruiz who wrote these 4 agreements. And the first agreement is never speak against self, even in a joke. Never take things personally.
Yes.
Because of other people's opinions.
Yeah.
And that's difficult, because when people push things onto you, it's like, I didn't have the easiest childhood, so I have a lifetime of experience of taking things on board.
Yeah.
And for me, it's not, I didn't just take them personally. I went into guilt over it.
Yeah.
Oh, this person's really upset. It must be my fault. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So those 4 agreements were really helpful, because it's like, no, there's a personal integrity issue here.
Yeah.
And if I'm a ship or I'm a boat on the ocean and my hull's punched full of holes, I'm going to take on water and sink.
Yeah.
So there is that personal integrity piece, that where you start to never speak against self, regardless of what's going on. And exactly right. You come down into your breath, you come down into your feet, and the productivity stays with the process.
Yeah.
Even though somebody else is really losing it.
That's right.
You know? Yeah.
Look, I remember reading this book the first time, and I think they explain it really in a really stark example. It's like, even if someone would shoot you, don't take it personal. And the message in there was, for me, it's like it's their story.
Yeah.
I wouldn't love it, but it is actually not because of me. There is something that is triggered in them, most likely, that is what it is. And it's empowering at the same time. And ever since, I used to listen to it, I think, every month for a year, because I thought it was so empowering. And ever since, I sometimes wrestle with not taking things personally. Yeah. But there's certainly a way easier way to stay with myself, rather than really taking it on. And as you said, like, guilt comes up, and it becomes it certainly mellows everything down that is said, because I don't take it personally, and just really think like, okay, well, I'm sure I have something to play here with. Like, sorry, I'm involved in this process, sure, but I don't take it personally, and therefore I don't take it on board. Yeah, it doesn't hurt as much, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, it's like, what resource are you bringing to yourself? What resource are we bringing to ourselves? And when we get involved in twos and fro's, when we react to the other person's reaction, you end up regretting it. Doesn't matter what happens. Yeah. You're going to end up regretting it. You're going to walk around the rest of the day. You're going to replay what happened over and over and over. Then you're going to replay your reaction. And it goes both ways. Yeah. Like, let's say you did something pretty good, like with an athlete, right? And people are like, you're amazing, and then for the rest of the day, it's like, oh, I'm amazing. That was really good. That felt really good. And there is some dependency then on people saying that to you. You really shouldn't take that personal, because
I found, like, leading the company, there's certainly also the need of someone else to give you a compliment because they want to give you that compliment. They want to feel good. They want to show they have a need to show that they like what you do. Because they want to be seen as, I support you. Fair enough, that's just human nature. But if you take that too personal, or to take that personal at all, then there's certainly a dependence. There's certainly, well, like, this is me, I'm amazing, which means I can't make mistakes, and then, can go all the way as like, if the mistake's happening, it wasn't really me, it was actually, there's this whole thing that becomes really convoluted.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, like, I do my thing, you do your thing, you give me a compliment, thank you. And you leave it there rather than like, oh man, this is amazing, give me more,
Yeah, that's so true, right? Like we take things literally.
Yeah.
And you can build a house on sand. And then if the ocean comes in and it eats away enough sand, your house slides into the sea, and it happens really easily unless that whole personal integrity piece is intact. I have my own ground, because look, it's like our relationships to everyone and everything are slippery. It's constantly changing and to and froing, right? Rising and dissolving. And if you hang on to anything, it becomes a source of not weakness, but it makes you more vulnerable. Yeah. So there is that piece around we need to resource our own nervous system so that we're not at threat all the time.
Are athletes more often in relationship with others, like, having a partner or not, or is there no?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Just thinking it brings complexity.
But their relationship to each other is really interesting. I ran a training squad for 8 years in Lennox Head that had, I want to say, maybe 15 full-time professional athletes in it.
Wow.
And that was really interesting because I never really paid it much attention.
Yeah.
I just thought, this is what we're doing. And then they were really successful at that time. And I was thinking, this is really good. But I never considered my own role in what was taking place. And it wasn't until after that was all finished, and I was having a coffee with one of my ex-athletes, and he said, "You are one eccentric dude." And I'm there, "Me? I'm not eccentric." He goes, "Oh, yes, you are." And I'm there, "How so?"
Yeah.
He said, 15 full-time triathletes, all, eating out of the same trough without killing each other. He said, "It's a minor miracle." And like, I'd never really paid that any attention. I said, "Can you say a little bit more about that?" He said, "Your presence," he said, "it was the presence and the ability of you to turn up without any shit hanging on to you that allowed us to function." He said it provided space for us to feel safe with each other.
Yeah.
So we do have that impact on each other. And coaching is often, especially in sport, a dictatorship. We are doing this and you will do that.
Okay.
And it kind of, it has this combative feeling to it. And I think that often falls apart. And by accident, I'm not a combative person. So you turn up and you create this space and people feel safe and they can actually function together without killing each other,
Yeah, it's actually that dynamic of one person not being there in the room, like, in the office, it seems to be all balanced, and then someone is on holiday or, is leaving the company or whatever, or a new one comes in and suddenly it's all off balance. And there's certainly that aspect. And it's interesting because you would think like people are sort of self-managed. Much more to it. I get triggered. I mean, in fact, I enjoy working in a space by myself, and I believe I work much better that way, but maybe that's because I don't have to consider that or think a lot. So maybe there's quite a bit of work that I should do on that too.
Oh, me too. Like, I mean, I'm triggered too. Like, who doesn't get triggered?
Right.
Like, that's just, and, there's this layer of judgment that I put on myself sometimes because I'm a one-on-one person. I do better one-on-one than in big groups. I often find myself judging myself about that. Why am I not good in groups? It's not that I'm not good. I'm just quiet. Like, I don't make a lot of noise.
Yeah.
So there is that piece. It's like, I'm okay as I am.
Yeah.
This is how I am. Why am I talking against myself because of, you know what I mean? Why?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
This talking against one, I found that a really interesting sort of motivator as well as hindrance. You know, like if you would say, I'm good enough, do you have the same drive as if you say, you're not good enough, you know, you could do so much better and so on? Like, how can you not sort of challenge yourself and saying like, come on, when at the same time you talk yourself down, and that, like, is there a way to both?
I think that's such a good question. And I think for me, the answer is when I'm fully in my, let's call it creative power, expanded, things flow naturally. Like the uniqueness that we all have starts to bubble to the surface. And then we don't have to push, we don't have to shove, we don't have to press, we don't have to be anxious. It just comes. When I push, shove, force, I get nothing, man. It's like I'm blocked. And then I get more frustrated and more anxious because I want to get this thing done and it's not happening. And then I go, okay, well, I just need to do a bit of breathing. I need to come back into my density, my feet, my heaviness, like go and blow some didgeridoo, and then come back, and then there it is again. I'm online. So a lot of the work that I do with especially elite athletes is that they tend to look outside themselves for answers. Here's best practice. I'll match best practice. And then I'll say best practice is yesterday. What about best practice today? And how do we get the best practice? We are uniquely ourselves. You bring your uniqueness, your creativity to the process by expanding out and letting it flow. And then there's less tension, and then people can relax physically, especially they can physically relax. And then that comes into the whole piece around how do we handle pain? What do we do with pain? Can we relax into pain? Can we allow pain to be present? Can we move into it? Can we let it actually, can we become the conduit to it?
Wow.
If that makes sense.
That's a common topic when you go high-end athlete.
Yeah. What are we going to do with pain?
Yeah. And does it mean that we damage the body?
No. Because once again, we're talking about a more expanded state of awareness.
Yeah.
So when you relax into discomfort, when you allow discomfort to come, let's just say you're on in an athletic context on a course that's really hot.
Yes.
If you avoid that heat and you disassociate from that heat, you can't feel any cooling effect because you're blocked. But the second you go, okay, I accept the heat, I feel the heat, I allow the heat to be here, and a little cooling wind is blowing, you can feel the cooling wind. So it's wild, right?
Yeah.
Like we push everything out, but we lose everything.
Yeah.
And become so disassociated that we lose our capacity again to move into what we don't want to feel. And I think that's the key thing.
You know, on a domestic level, I know that something that my wife and I, when it gets when the kids are just a lot, right? You know, a few, they're all young, so it's sometimes a lot. It makes all the difference to say, you know, we chose to do this. This is not something that someone else dumped on us. Like we actually decided to do this.
Yeah.
And it's like an absolute switch. It's like black and white. It's like completely angry and against it, and it's like, oh, this is so unfair, to like, you know what, I mean, you know, we said we want to do this, and so that comes with the good and the bad and the ugly, and yeah, it's just the mind. It's a mind shift that takes a couple of seconds to say like I said yes, therefore this is part of it. Okay, so the acceptance, I guess, the acknowledgement.
Yeah, but it's acceptance of the discomfort.
Yeah,
like that's it, right? Like any goal, any goal at all. You set a goal, you put it out there. You go, I want this goal. Then that's basically saying I accept the discomfort. So when you set a goal and then you come out against yourself and say this is too uncomfortable, it's like literally the energy of the universe is going, this guy's sending me really confusing messages here. He keeps telling me he wants this goal, and then he keeps telling me he doesn't want this goal. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah. So it's like that. That's the attraction.
Yeah.
The push pull.
Yeah.
That's where all our energy gets convoluted and lost.
I can see that the more people, so two people have a goal, and one says like, well, I'm all right to say yes to this and, accept that much of pain, but not more. And the other one says like, whatever it takes, then that person has probably way higher chance. So the more you accept of everything that comes with it, the easier it is probably to reach your goal.
Yeah, I believe so. That's my belief. Like, since in my own case, since I've taken all the blocks out and just gone, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
We were talking about dancing out there
Yeah.
before. Dancing has become such a massive anchor for me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, here I am. I turn up as I am, and I dance the way I dance, and I don't care.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes I do these workshops, and there's a part of those workshops called being naked with the goal, which means you set that goal, then you better be prepared to be naked with that goal.
Yeah.
It's like, here I am. I'm prepared to fall on my sword and fail in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't care because it means that much to me. So the discomfort is a big part of that. If discomfort comes, instead of pushing it out, I'm going to lean into it and I'm going to let it go into my body. I'm going to fully feel it. All the, is it prickly? Is it blunt force trauma? Is it hurt? What's going on? And what is pain? What is discomfort? It's like, it's not solid. We can move it. It comes to us because it's meant to leave, right? And we trap it.
It's so aligned with what you said in the very beginning of like high-end athletes are often quite childlike, right?
Yeah.
Because they are, as you said, a blank canvas, and so they don't have these blockages.
No.
So and then I guess that's a fascinating thing, and it's probably not for every athlete, but like I've met quite a few high-achieving people. They're often very nice people. They're people that are not what you expect. That to me, the attitude they have is really more going with it. Like there's certainly not a lot of pushing against it. Can I have an autograph? Can I have a picture? They might shield themselves from this interaction, but when the interaction happens, often very accommodating.
Yeah. I find many athletes to be really, really good people at the core level.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, if you're in a day-to-day grind like that, it grinds out your ego. You know what I mean? Like you turn up, you fail, you fall, and it gets rid of and you find out pretty quickly that if I bring my ego here, and once again, that picture that I build and the reality are two different things, then they don't mesh, right? Like I work with this big wave surfer in Maui.
Yeah.
And this guy, like they're surfing like 80-foot waves. They've had a swell in Maui that has been relentless. Like they had 5 days and they had a few days off and then they had another run, which is so rare. And I saw videos of it and I'm going, they're moving mountains of water. And this guy is so humble. He's so just a really, really nice guy. And they're kind of been transformed. They've been melted through a process that's really, really difficult, really, really challenging. And this particular guy broke his femur and has a titanium rod. And that happened in 21 at a place called Jaws in Maui. So his process has been to get back because all the specialists said, you'll never make it back. You'll never make it back. And he's back. and it's like, in his process, he is relentless. Gym, foiling, the non-stop training all day. To get back, and you can't do that without being melted down in some way.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating. Human nature.
Yeah. Always changing. Very dynamic.
Yeah.
Hey, I looked on your website, and you recommended a couple of books, or pointed out some books that were really impactful to you.
Yeah.
And one was The Art of War, which is a book I read and which is, commonly known as a really important book or a really special book, really intelligent book and so on. What I haven't figured out is how does that really apply to life?
The art of war is really interesting, and I've read books on the samurai code as well.
Ah, yes.
Not because of the combat. The interesting thing about these books is that if you read between the lines,
yes,
they talk about spatial awareness all the time. They talk about the ability to be completely present in the battlefield. So it's to come to the battlefield completely prepared, come early, and wait for the enemy to turn up in anxiety. So you've already won the battle before the battle even starts. And that to me is fascinating. So in the art of war, there's quotes, right? There's all these quotes, and that's what I take for. I just pull the quotes, and I go, it's so interesting. And like the samurai would meditate for hours a day, because the basic premises of that is if somebody's going to be swinging a sword at you, you better make sure that your spatial awareness is like on point. You better be fully present, because if you're worried about that sword, you're going to lose your head. So it's true in life as well. And I think that's the power of the ability to expand. And when we expand, we bring more capacity to ourselves. And then the nervous system says, okay, there's not as much threat here as I thought. And for a battlefield, like I can't even imagine being in those realms.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's really, really important.
So if the quote would be, turn up early or something like that, that would relate to anything, like being prepared for whatever it is, whether it's for your journey, for your travels, or for having a job interview or confronting conversation with someone, right? Yeah.
Yeah, one of the quotes in that book is, "He who rushes to the battlefield has already lost."
Huh.
So I think that's true.
Yes.
So look, we in the corporate world, in the working world, like everybody's pressing and pushing and shoving and rushing, and it's like, well, what if you create more space? What if you expand? What if you allow more of your creative juice? What if there's more spatial awareness in your own head? What are you capable of then?
Yeah.
How much productivity can you bring in a flow in 4 hours rather than a shove in 8 to 10 to 15,
Yes.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah, and I guess if you teach this early, the easier even the earlier life is, in the 20s. Like your athletes are probably more sort of like late teens, early 20s, would you say?
Well, we're seeing them. You see them now, and the young people in their early 20s seem to be way more aware than we were in our. I mean, they feel more tapped in, more present.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, I'll be sitting in a cafe and there'll be a group of young people sitting at a table somewhere, and you can't help it. You overhear the conversations.
Yeah.
And I go, wow, that's vulnerable. Wow, that's authentic. Wow, that's real. As we sat at tables like fueled with testosterone, talking utter rubbish to each other.
So you think really society has changed?
I think it's slowly shifting.
Yeah.
I think there's a shift taking place, and there's two speeds. There's the speed at the top end, which is going faster and faster and faster towards dysfunction, which is pushing in exhaust, and the exhaust is people being forced into presence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you're under pressure, people will melt down and become more.
That's a mechanism that I don't love, because basically what I see, and it's said about entrepreneurs, it is way easier to be a successful entrepreneur if you have grit, which often comes from adversity as your childhood, or just having like a lot of adverse events in your early life.
Yeah,
it's certainly true for me that like I didn't have a great. Well, I had a great childhood, but when it comes to actually, as soon as I hit school, things went really south, and teachers would say like, probably doomed to go prison or not go far at all. And then the smarter ones had said, or they become a millionaire, sort of thing. You know how that saying goes, because you sort of disconnect yourself with what it is, because it's so painful or it's so sad. Like I was just like, oh my God, I will be a number all my life in a small working town in Germany. Not so good. And that was really depressing for a while, but it propelled me into, I'll figure this out, and it created a lot of grit that, is still here. Like I still read books like I depend on it, even though I don't. It's just like, this is just my nature now. Probably comes to your structure of like, what are the different building blocks of, we were talking about
Automaticity.
You go from thrive, discomfort to automaticity.
Yeah. But where the thrive becomes natural.
Yeah.
Automatic. It's really interesting what you just spoke about. My childhood is the same.
Huh.
I mean, I had to devise ways to get home from school without getting beaten up. I didn't grow up in a great area.
Yeah.
It wasn't safe. There was no safety there. So, and this is really interesting about childhoods, because people often look back and lament them. I'm grateful because I had really good parents, but it was a very difficult situation, a very difficult place. Without that difficulty, there wouldn't have been this opening. It just wouldn't have happened, right?
Oh,
like
man.
you can be, there's something not to be said about being comfortable. Having a great childhood and being comfortable all the way through your life and going through to the keeper. Like, when you're pushed to expand.
Yes, to your point, what you said about this cafe thing earlier and the exhaust is like, if people break earlier, have a nervous breakdown already in their 20s, they will look for solutions that then make them potentially, actually way more resilient and really thrive.
Yeah.
It's just a weird conundrum,
Isn't it?
It's annoying because, you create suffering, but that suffering actually helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I agree with the spiritual idea up here that we are souls on a journey, and that process is by design.
Yes.
And the information in that process for each of us goes back to something bigger than we are.
Yeah.
And you can be an atheist and believe whatever you want, but the fact of the matter is, as you get older, you look back at the course of your life and you go, there's a pattern here. There's a process. There's a progress. There's a development. I'm learning. And with each new challenge, I'm getting more capacity, more resilient. And it doesn't mean you're stoic. It's the opposite. It's like, I'm actually okay to be who I am now. Oh, yeah, right. It's taken 50 years to get here. But it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That process does seem to have a design.
I sometimes think about this, how, like, if we just assume that, so souls are more or less always there, even though when the person dies, soul stays there, however, forgets about the life, and then they're put in to the same setting, in a sense, same earth maybe, but don't know the rules again. It's like, all right, we're playing this game again, but you forgot everything you just learned, which is like, this is infinite in a sense, because how will you ever know? It's a great setup if you want to play forever.
Yeah.
If the memory doesn't go back to, or maybe it goes. I mean, some people say like, look, the souls bring it back to this sort of like core of where consciousness, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, sits. But at the moment where it plays the game, it forgets. So it can maybe collect more data and experience.
Yeah. I mean, I went to last year. I went to India for 6 weeks to this ashram. That was the ashram of Maharishi.
Wow.
And the basic philosophy there is that we are gaining information. And as we go along this pathway, we gain more and more information. And when we get free of all this stuff, we break through into infinite expansion. That's the idea. Yeah. And otherwise, if you don't develop, if you don't progress, you're trapped in the wheel of karma, going around and around these lifetimes. It's just a philosophy, right?
Yeah.
But it helps me sleep at night.
Right.
Yeah.
Giving it meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some sort of meaning. But when you look back at the pathway and the pattern, it makes sense. Yeah.
You got another book on your website, The Power of Now.
Yeah.
So that's Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you find is particularly important about that book to know or to learn, the insights that it gives?
That in this lifetime, to be authentically living, like we are right now, we have to be right here, right now. It's that simple, right? when I read that book, I was working in triathlon with this group, and everywhere I traveled, I took the book with me because I went, this is like an athlete's almanac. It's like this is such a good anchor for athletes. But it had that spiritual context to it, which is often difficult for athletes because it's like, I don't want to look at that.
Right.
But the underpinning message of it was so true. Do you want to be alive or do you want to be a living death? You know what I mean? Like if your psyche is so with what happened or so in fear of what will happen, you're not here now. You're not actually living in the present moment. And that was the book that started that for me.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I'm just thinking, I guess it's back to children, right? Like, they don't live in the past. They live in the now.
Yeah.
Many pets as well. They just don't have that ability to sort of constantly remember the bad things that happen, or in general, what happened. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how the psyche wants to replay really uncomfortable things? What is that? Like, I often think about this. I'm like, what is it in my psyche that wants to replay the most horrific moments? And then, but the realization is that if you keep doing that, you're creating the perfect conditions for a repeat.
Manifestation, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that because there's that catastrophic past that filters through to the fear and doubt of a future. And so peace can only come here under my feet. That peace can't be anywhere else.
I think about that sometimes too. And I feel there's certainly that it might be something really unusual, something really extreme. Often there are lots of insights in it. It's a bit like you read a couple of books. So that if you want to compare it to events, like little events, I said hello to that one. I bought my coffee there, and so it's little books. And there was one, and this person really shouted at me, and that was really traumatic, which is like a deep book, like there's something in it. And you can really pull it apart. And maybe it's just like actually that, there's certainly the possibility on learning from that. That's how often I ask myself too, why am I going back to that one? It's done. It's all good. But when you're really done with something, there's normally a tool that you've gained or a perspective that you can use when it happens again. But without really digesting it, I guess, and really feeling comfortable with it. I understood what happened. This will never happen again. I will prevent it by learning from it.
Yeah.
There's certainly one way of dealing with it. Of course, that's not the only one.
Yeah.
The only way, because it could become a trauma.
Yeah. I mean, I think where challenging situations like that are traumatic come, I like to write things. I'm a writer. I love writing.
Right.
So I write things down. What is this? Why did it happen? What did it teach me? What can I learn?
Yeah.
And because it's downloading it out of the psyche. And I'll give you an example. Like last year, I nearly drowned in a supping accident in really big surf. And I got pulled out through really big surf.
Yeah.
And there was an outgoing current that was coming out of the river at the same time. So there was this 2.2 meter tide, which was running out, and a 10-foot incoming swell. And I was in the middle of it and in a lot of trouble.
Wow.
And I very, very nearly drowned. And right at the last second, it spat me out into open ocean. And then I was okay. But I was kind of really shaken by that experience.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I need to look at this. So the next day, I went back to the bar, stood on the end of the bar just to make peace with the area.
Right.
And then what can I learn from this? And then the key thing was that death is easy, man. It's like sliding through a silk sheet. Happens really fast and really easily. And I thought, okay, that's a really good acknowledgement. And what do I want to do with this? Do I want to carry that fear into the future, or do I want to use this experience to help me right now? And that's exactly what it did, because it's like every time now I get into something that's highly challenging, I nearly died. Last year, I nearly died.
Wow.
Like I very, 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 very nearly died. And I'm there. What does it matter?
Yeah.
Who cares? It's like sliding through a silk sheet. What is the fear? What is the threat? So everything can be fodder for self-expansion, I think. Self-awareness.
Oh, that is amazing.
Yeah. I don't recommend it.
Hey, when you talk about writing things down, I had I don't know if you know Tom Kiley, but he was on podcast a while ago, and I asked him. He's a poet,
Yeah.
but he's also an economist, so a great mix.
Yeah.
And he said, look, like my insights I normally put into morning prayers. So I have a couple of different morning prayers that normally consist of, I think, was it 8 wisdoms, 10 wisdoms, or something like that.
Yeah, right.
And he would go for a walk, and he would take his beats, and he would remind himself of like, I could die any time, so I'm grateful for that, whatever it is, like sort of like real gems of mental constructs or reminders and so on. And I found that fascinating because I feel I'm exposed to a lot of knowledge, but it also flows through me, and I might write it down, but I don't reread it. Like, do you curate your worldview and yourself by actually somehow using your writing for that? Like, is there something to anchor it in, to remind yourself, to somehow, how do you gain your wisdom and keep your wisdom?
That's a really good question. I was never a writer.
Mm-hmm.
I never wrote a damn thing. My entire life, my whole athletic career, my coaching career, never wrote a thing. And then, like, I say maybe 8 years ago, one night I woke up and I just started to scribble in the middle of the night. Something was cooking. I started scribbling, and I started scribbling, and then it kept happening. I kept waking up and scribbling, and then over time, I started to get up in the morning, and I think this is really good practice, and I scribble. So I'd scribble, and I scribble, and I scribble, and I scribble, and things started to come out of the writing. How can I write that? I don't know that. Where did that come from? And I'll give you an example. One night I had this dream about this teacher saying to me, there's so much information that I'm bringing to you during the night. You're not absorbing it. You need a minute paper. And I wake up the next morning and I go, it's just a dream. And then I couldn't let it go. It kept going around in my psyche, minute paper, minute paper, minute paper. I'm there. Okay. So I asked Rob, I asked the people around me who I really learned, what's a minute paper? Nobody knew. So then, okay, I went to Dr. Google and I Googled minute paper. A minute paper is something that a student has with a professor at university to shorthand information. And that blew my mind. I'm there. How could I have known that? Yeah. Where did that come from, right? And so the writing over the years has developed its own unconscious writing. This river of information comes through the writing. Now, I don't know if we take it in from everything that we learn, but writing expresses this vein, this channel of information that I have no idea about.
Wow.
So a lot of the knowledge, no, that's not the right word. A lot of the understanding that I've gained has come through my writing, with things being written on paper that I don't actually live, and I actually don't know, and I actually don't understand. But over time, it begins to become understood. And then that becomes wisdom to move forward, personal wisdom to move forward. That is not, it's my belief, it's not of us. This channeling that we do and the talents that we have is already available in the ether. I remember Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones. I remember he's doing this interview and somebody said to him, how did you manage to write all these classics? And he goes, it's all just going past in the ether, man. You don't have to do anything. You just pull it down. Wow. It's that simple. Right. And it's true, right? And writing, I think, is a way of pulling it down.
There's a lot of evidence that thoughts and ideas emerge at the same time on the globe without any connection. So before great communication, certain invention happened on 2 different sides of the globe. You have animals that figure something out, like there were the sparrows or starlings in the Netherlands, and I think they were also in the UK, and in one of the countries, let's say it was the Netherlands, they somehow accidentally learned how to open the tops of the milk bottles that were delivered every morning. And that the milk bottles had been around for a long time. They had been delivered for a long time, but the starlings never went into it. They went into that summer, and it became a real big issue. And in the other country, where they can't fly that quickly, they did the same thing.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think to your point of ether, that to me is fascinating. And having twins and having talked to a lot of twins, there is a lot that can be said about non-verbal communication by being completely remote from each other on the other side of the world. There's all these things. I have heard, like I'm sure you've heard that people say like, oh, my twin brother, sister, I just had to call them, and sure enough, something was wrong. Like it's really common with twins, also with other people, and it's all in that realm, in that field of ether, probably, huh?
Yeah, I really believe that's true.
Yeah,
I've read that same information.
Okay,
and here, like locally, have you noticed that the toad population has gone down, the cane toad population? The crows worked out how to flip them over without getting poison and eat them. How did they do that? How did they come to that information?
Wow.
And people will go, oh, it was an accident. Well, if it's an accident, how come all the crows are doing it?
Yes, right.
And this comes back to the point, like, we believe in our cognitive minds that everything we need is outside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get this. We need to learn this. We need to study this. And I actually believe that it's already available, and that there's a wealth of information that comes to us when we're quiet, when we're silent, and go for a walk in nature in bare feet for 2 hours and just pay attention to nature. And then for me, things pop, and I write everything down now. If there's a sentence, I'll write the sentence down. If I'm walking in nature, there might be one sentence around, I don't know, like butterflies or something like that. And I'll write the sentence out. And then the next morning when I'm having my coffee, it will fill itself out. I'm not kidding. It comes to me. It doesn't come from me. That's how the writing bubbles up for me. And I think that's available to all of us.
Yeah. So what do you do with the sentence once you've written it down? So that's, to me, like it's like harnessing or sort of almost fishing. Yeah, like somehow it came to you, however it came to you. So you write it down. And how do you then take it further? You would sit down later on in the day or whenever, and you think about it?
Yeah. So like in notes on my phone, like my notes are thousands and there's thousands and thousands and thousands. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I just write it in there in notes. I just write one sentence.
Yeah.
And then I'll go back to it without thinking about it, and it will fill itself out. And I'm talking like 1,000 words.
Yeah.
And then my website guy goes, you can't put 1,000 words on social media. People won't read it.
Yeah.
So then I've got to condense it. And it doesn't really matter if anybody reads it or not, because it's information for me. So everything that I express outwards is information that I need on some level. And then I find that it helps other people. Oh, I didn't think of it that way. And like when you express your ideas to me, I can go, Sebastian said something and I've never thought of that way before. And so that's the power of each individual and how we take our information and how we use it. And I say to athletes all the time, or any performance orientated thing, it's coming to you. It's not, it can't, it's already available. Don't try and get it out there. Get it in here because it's already there.
I'm just thinking about hypnosis. I did a course with Dolores Cannon when she was still alive. She wrote, I want to say 18 books on what she encountered in terms of knowledge that doesn't really belong to the person she actually hypnotized. And she gave me one mental picture in the course that really made gave me certainly quite understanding. And she said, I've thought about that a lot. How can I talk to a person in a hypnosis and say, I want to talk to the superconscious? And it gives me information that is certainly not related or doesn't seem to be related to this person, but whatever. Then I go to a second person and a third and a fourth, and I ask them the same question. I want to talk to the superconscious. and they continue the story that the first person has told me, and the second and the third and so on. And that's how she wrote her books. It came out of many, many different people. And so the construct that she gave me, the visuals, is like, have a think about a route. The individuals are the very end of the route. So if you go up the forks again, there becomes a more and more common knowledge that everyone accesses. So you have individual experience, but then two people are connected through a fork. In their subconscious, somehow they share some knowledge, some experience. If they go further up and so on, so you go all the way up, all souls are connected, basically. That's what she would say. And it's fascinating to apply that to stories that you hear. I remember this one person here in this area that said, like, look, talking about, sort of things that happen to people. I was walking a path in nature, and I was late. And so somehow my mind said, go another way. I walked another way, and then I just felt I wanted to stop. And I picked up a rock. I looked at this rock, and I knew this was a really significant rock. And I found out later that the pattern on the rock is the same as my fingerprint to a T. And he knew that, and otherwise he wouldn't even decide to look at it. I don't know what my fingerprint looks like, but somehow he figured this out. And it comes to, like, there's knowledge. Like, that was not in him. Like, he said this was an old, like, he had to dig a little bit to find this rock. This was, weirdly, this information came to him, but it wasn't something someone told him. It was somehow there. And I think it's all related. These types of things that we're describing here is related to something that is just not understood right now as well. Yeah.
No. I don't understand it either. I don't even understand, like, at this point in my life, I'm there. I don't understand myself at all.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Because there's something back there that's really big.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. And I want more of it.
Yeah.
But I'm stuck here with my cognitive worries and thoughts and doubts and stresses and anxieties. But you get the sense that it's in play. It's definite. There's no doubt. It's there.
Definitely.
That thing is there.
Yeah.
There's a non-duality teacher named Rupert Spira in the UK. He talks about consciousness. And he used to be an international potter. So he's very creative. Anyway, he talks about life as a like being in the ocean. It's an ocean, and it's expanded ocean, and each life is like a small whirlpool. When the bubbles spin around in the small whirlpool in the ocean. And he said one forms, it spirals, and then it dissolves, and it goes back to the whole. And he said, in each lifetime is all coming from the one source of consciousness. And so nobody's consciousness is actually separate.
Yes.
And so all that information from all of us is available.
Yeah, the saying, we are one, and sometimes that's used religiously, certainly spiritual.
Yeah.
Would fit into that.
Yeah. Of course, it's once again, it's philosophy.
Yes.
But it helps.
Yeah. I was early exposed to the whole thing of, like, look, you can just be an atheist and believe in nothing.
Yeah.
Or you can live in hope, or find a construct that helps you to enjoy life more, give the meaning that you're seeking.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when you die, it doesn't really matter. If you're an atheist and you were right, you're gone.
Yeah.
If you believe and you had a life of believing and feeling good about it, and you're gone, you're still just gone.
Yeah.
Whereas if the believer is right, it doesn't matter what you were believing in your life. You still then have this construct of, like, I'm part of a bigger whole. I come back. I'm a soul. That type of thing. Right?
Yeah.
So certainly makes life more enjoyable, I guess, or more calming.
Yeah. We don't. It's a mystery, man. Like, life, the whole thing's a mystery.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah. That's right.
Why am I doing this? Why are we having this conversation?
Yeah, that's right.
Why do we have kids? Why does the sun come up?
Yeah.
Like, it's and if we circle back to the child again, the child is just present, curious with that mystery.
Yeah.
And it's to stay curious in that mystery, like for us. It's a mystery. Let's stay curious all the way to the deathbed.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I do I call it visualization, like I do hypnotherapy.
Right.
But I do something morbid. It's called the deathbed projection, where you put somebody in a calm state through the, into the trance state. Picture yourself laying on your deathbed, the breath's ebbing away. You're coming up to what's important now, right now. And people always say the same thing: love. Yeah, love. People I love, experiences that I felt, that I had, like, it's not, that's where it's at. And that is the mystery. That's not so mysterious when you do the deathbed projection. And I hear it again and again. It's the same things. Nobody ever says, I'm really going to miss my car.
Yeah. Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, it comes back to how can you live a meaningful and joyous life. And certainly being reminded of that's important. Having meaning as well. Like I found, in our organization, our company, it's very important to know why I do certain things. Like, why do I help this customer? Why does it matter that they have our product? What does it do in them? Why does it matter that I'm kind to them? That type of thing. If you remind yourself and your team on that, there's certainly, for them, it's like they feel a sense of achievement. That's good. So you feel positive. Don't know if necessarily love, but it's easier to love yourself when you say, oh, I'm doing something good. Yeah. And it's the same as with goals. These goals are known. It's nice to sort of pursue something, which also makes you feel good, positive. And therefore maybe I love myself more because I'm actually doing something good. Like, there's this mechanism, and I believe it becomes more and more important as survival is not so much of an issue anymore. At least not from the point of view, like, do I have enough money and do I live in a safe space? I think survival comes more from, like, do I have actually meaning in life? Because if you don't have meaning in life, it's really tricky to actually wanting to be alive.
Yeah. Look at the suicide rate.
Right. What about it? Through the roof?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to people feel like it's pointless. They get to a point where they feel like it's pointless because they have no foundation in something bigger, but it's within themselves, right? Like, it's fundamental.
Yeah.
And so I believe that if you stay curious, if you stay with the mystery, that drives the opening to do things. And every single thing, philosophy again, this is just my belief, every single thing is made of love. Like, even the negative things, like if somebody does something negative, they did it with some form of love, even if it's their own warped sense of pleasure.
Right.
It's still some form of love.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a complex topic, both of those, actually, like suicide, of course, as well. I've been exposed to quite a degree to that topic as well. But
me too.
Right. Yeah. And being not that type of person that easily sort of thinks about that option, I would think more like, well, what else could give me meaning? And I mean, I would go all the way into, like, just the garden. Which is actually nature, but like, whatever that might be, like, there's so much yearning for me to, like, experience life, but of course that can change. But giving people meaning always is super, super important. And when you have kids, it's also like, how do they find something that keeps them curious and interested and all the rest of it? And you might be right, it might be actually the state of mind more than anything else. And what exactly it is comes after.
I mean, depression is the thinking slides down to where you're often there's a self-esteem issue, a reflection. They don't see the beauty and value in themselves. They see something that's not actually true. You know what I mean? Like, I've done it. Like, when I felt really
100%.
down, I've looked in the mirror and go, God, that guy's ugly. Like, wow, dude, what's going on? It's not the physical appearance. It's the vision that's coming from inside. And the vision is that key word again. Where focus goes, energy flows. If your focus is on the negative, energy is going to be negative. And then when we get into a spiral and we get depressed, that has an impact on the physical body. And then the body needs a rest, man. It's like, so, my opinion around depression is like, there's that, and what do they call that analogy? Deep rest. Have the deep rest. Like, lay down, resource your body, bring yourself back online, see yourself as worthy, because it's not about doing, it's about being, And And I think that's what happens. People start to believe that they're a human doing.
Yeah.
And then that becomes pointless.
Yeah, gotcha.
That's just my view on it, because I've had run-ins with it myself. It's common amongst athletes. They become completely exhausted, and then their thinking is really negative, and then they end up with chronic fatigue and depression. And
yes,
it's really, really common.
Yeah, let's hope we figure this out.
It's all under our feet, you know.
Meaning the solutions.
The only way out is in.
Right.
Yeah, that's
okay. Grounding.
Yeah.
How we started, in a sense.
Yeah.
Breathe into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the circle back to childhood is really interesting, right? Like I do that all the time.
Okay.
How was I as a kid? Like I don't know about you, but when I was like, I got a little bit older, I used to wander around in nature all day long. All day.
Yeah.
Creeks, riverbeds, dangerous stuff. My mother had known where I was, she probably would have lost her marbles. But it's like the curiosity.
Yeah.
Like, wow. And then when you go on your first overseas trip, remember that? You get on the plane, it's like, oh, wow. Like I've got my own passport, I've got a plane ticket, I'm going to fly to another country. And my feet are going to touch earth in another country.
It blew my mind. Actually, traveling is a good way to sort of get new perspective and also get out of your, maybe negative thought patterns. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very nice conversation.
Yeah.
I could do that again.
That was flow.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Really appreciate that. Hey, if people want to find out more about your writing and about your work, I know you also do one-on-one, especially with high-end people, but probably coaching of all sorts.
All sorts. Yeah.
All sorts. What's the best way to find and reach you?
I have a website. It's just grantgiles.com.au. And then this is going to sound strange, but on my personal Facebook page, that's where I started to write.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I'm still funneling it onto my personal page, which is just Grant Giles.
Amazing.
On Facebook. And then there's Instagram and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But my email address is grant@aeromaxteam.com, AEROMAXTEAM.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so
it's
much.
That simple.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it.
Thanks so much, Sebastian. I really enjoyed that. That was cool.
Thanks for your time. Let's do that again. We hope you got a lot out of today's inspiring conversation. Please share this episode with someone you know needs to hear it. Whether they are a seasoned health expert or just beginning their wellness journey, these stories of remarkable transformation, success and valuable insights will certainly help empower more people. Until next time, have the best life ever.